Disclaimer. Breakthroughs in our Tomba research during the last 2 years made it possible to look at the game's files in much more detail. With the advent of LDAR file unpacking, we got access to the area and section folders and all the files the game loads into memory when entering an area in the game. This includes text, models, audio, collision maps, VRAM, graphics, sprites, asset placement data, and more. However, although we've done a lot of research, this is all still ultimately speculation. There's no way to know the original intent of the developers. Additionally, there's a large amount of data, especially untranslated Japanese text, still to be discovered, so this research is not intended to give end-all be-all answers to everything. Also, we aren't particularly proficient in Japanese anyway, so many of the Japanese-only texts are an amalgamation of Google Translate, DeepL Translate, and whatever our Japanese expert at Discord could gather. What you just saw is a bizarre video file in the movie folder of the US and Japanese releases of Tomba called bunmei.str that appears to show a unique town area being purified. In the typical purification FMV fashion, it first shows the cursed state, which appears to be just a camera pan over 3 elemental town areas, and closing with a view of the purified state, which demonstrates a completely new town containing elements of all 3 previous ones. As if the 3 areas were merged into one in the purified state. For what it's worth, Bunmei means civilization in Japanese. Many people probably saw this for the first time at Unseen64's YouTube channel in 2008, but some people have reported seeing the video as early as the late 90s by using Explorer or Action Replay, probably causing much confusion and leading gamers on to something that never really was. Just what is this mysterious town, and where is it? Modern tools let us look at the video itself frame by frame, as well as dig deeper into the game's code and data. After careful analysis, independent research, and lots of work, we've got some answers. But first, let's go back to 2013. Tomba, Unused video. It was here in the cutting room floor's forums where the initial discussion started. Although it began with some questions about an unrelated video, the thread quickly became a general Tomba thread, with way more questions than answers. User Rusty had noticed that some of the unused graphic files in the sys folder resemble parts seen in the Bunmei video, hinting that there might be more things related to this mysterious town hidden in the game's data besides the video. This graphic in A00147.000 looks like a part of the windmill. This one kinda looks like the central tower. It's hard to make sense of all the graphics when the colors look weird. What's the deal with that? Quick primer. The PlayStation can display graphics in various ways. While we won't be going through all the different methods, it's important to understand that compared to a modern, simple bitmap format like PNG, where each pixel has a color consisting of 32-bit color value, the PlayStation does things a bit differently. For example, take this apple. Only its color indexes are stored in the graphics file itself, each pixel being 4 bits stored in a reverse order inside its respective byte. This is commonly referred to as 4BPP graphics, and they can only ever have 16 unique colors. Because the graphic data doesn't contain the color data, a palette must be retrieved from someplace else. This has some advantages. You can now draw all kinds of different colored apples with only a single piece of graphic data by simply using a different color lookup table, or CLUTs as they are officially called. But the drawbacks are apparent. If there's no CLUT to be found, that color data is lost forever and you're stuck with a colorless pile of pixels. Now, guessing the entire CLUT of something as simple as a 4BP apple might be doable, but when you're talking about multiple graphic files of 8BP graphics, where you'd have to guess 256 colors, there's just no use in even trying. We did look for an appropriate CLUT from every place imaginable, but even after exhaustive searching, we had to accept that those colors were gone for good. There were only graphics files for the Unused town, but not a single usable CLUT. But what if we could sample colors from the Unused FMV and try to recreate the CLUT? Well, that's exactly what we ended up doing. First, we meticulously stitched together the full maps from the video's low-quality frames. Then, placed the unused graphics pieces on top of the best candidate and saved both as the bitmap file and the sample file. We then programmed a tool that assigns the bitmap's non-transparent pixels to the sample image's pixels at the same location and builds color average pools for the final CLUT to be made out of. The results were pretty good. For the first time ever, we finally saw what the graphics were supposed to look in their original colors. After piecing the parts together, we could draw some insights. The Iron Castle area has some graphics of a wall with the text Iron, the number 1, standing and falling over. There's a graphic of this key in the Iron Town graphics. Keep this in mind. There appear to be lots of chains and cranks in the graphics. The stone area has a sign with the graphic Stone TH still present, likely for Stone the number 1. You can see a pavement with circular stones and pillars leading up to the top right corner of the stone area. This might have something to do with the unused clock tower render. There's a well in the middle of the stone area. Keep this in mind too. One of the wood area interiors has a slot machine in it. The wood area exterior has some lettering in the rightmost wall. You can barely make out the W and a T, suggesting it said wood, the number 1. All of the graphic files have a space reserved for some NPCs as well, some with unique animations, hinting to what they might have originally been doing in the areas. We'll come back to all this, but let's move on to the lava caves for now. The lava caves are a small intermission area you reach after climbing through the first half of Phoenix Mountain. Initially, you can only visit a small ledge because the area is bound by the green evil pig's curse, an insurmountable flame wall. Once you beat the pig, the curse is lifted and a cutscene plays where the storm cloud appears on top of the caves and puts out the inferno with a heavy rain. The purification song isn't playing, the gold sparkle seen in the other purification videos isn't present, and the section's music track hardly changes after the supposed purification. All in all, it feels more like the part in the Village of All Beginnings, where you first off couldn't proceed because of the fog, and only after using a special item did the cutscene play and you were allowed to continue. It's likely that originally the lava caves weren't bound by an evil pig curse at all in the first place, but because the Village of Civilization got scrapped, the green pig was chosen to represent the lava caves instead. There are numerous points to support this claim. 1. The cowboy NPC you meet speaks nothing about a pig curse, but instead casually remarks how if we weren't inside a cave, maybe some rain could help put out these flames. 2. The purification cutscene feels nothing like a true purification FMV, whereas the unused Bunmei video does. 3. In the event screen, all pig bag events use an icon of an appropriately colored pig bag, except the fire pig bag, which has the same icon as the lava caves event. 4. There is an unused item in the game called Rain Essence. You can find the item's sprite graphics in the Haunted Mansion's VRAM, and you can even spawn and grab it. The item itself can be hacked to your inventory. You can use it in only one place, the lava cave sledge, but sadly its behavior code isn't working, so you only ever get to see the "used the Rain Essence" prompt. 5. All spellbound areas in the game have internal area and section IDs for both cursed and uncursed states, except the lava caves. So, a quick recap. Originally, you were supposed to get the Rain Essence, probably from the Haunted Mansion, use it to put out the flames in the lava caves, and continue on your way to Massacre Jungle, and on to the Village of Civilization, which you would then purify by defeating the green evil pig. So, what was the deal with the Village of Civilization then? Judging by the slew of unused text and graphics, the curse, if you can really call it that, was that the 3 villages around the Y crossing all hated each other. The residents of Stonestown thought that they were the best and that stone was the #1 material for everything, much like the people of Lumberjack Town were fierce supporters of wood and Iron Town's folk swore by their namesake material. Only after the curse was lifted would they come together and actually realize the virtues of teamwork. With a sharp eye, you can still see how there's 3 distinct walled towns in the map. These represent the original 3 towns, Stonestown, Lumberjack Town, and Iron Town, which were later reworked into the Clock Tower, Lumberjack Factory, and the Iron Castle, respectively. The most apparent data to back up these claims is obviously the unused video file itself, but besides that, there's a whole lot of unused data that tells an interesting story, so let's go through some of it and write down some thoughts. Note: there is much more unused text in the Japanese version that never got translated to the US release. You can view the script dumps here. This has not been analyzed in its entirety, so if you know Japanese and find anything interesting, please let us know in the Discord server. There are also many early Japanese demos that have not been checked out thoroughly, so there's still a lot to be discovered. Anyway, let's first observe the more interesting event descriptions. Notice: event descriptions exist for many events, even if the event name itself doesn't exist in the data. While this isn't a full list of all the unused event descriptions, we think these in particular are likely related to the Village of Civilization. The greater the AP points, the better the item. Catch the dangerous electric eel. Something with dangerous powers. Find the stolen evil pig bag. Listen to the green fortune teller's story. Can't we all just get along? A broken bridge blocks the way. The clock that stopped. Cogwheels make the clock tick. What's stronger than stone? The door with the keyhole that will not open. 3 towns come together when the spell is broken. Let's go through these one by one. The greater the AP points, the better the item. This likely has something to do with the unused events found in the Japanese standalone demo called AP Slot Machine, which translates to AP Slot Machine. There's an icon still present in the demo, but what's left in the retail game is just this description. The reason we think this is related to the Village of Civilization is because there is a slot machine in the Lumberjack town. It's similar to the one found in the Dwarf Elder's hut in the final release. There's no slot machine functionality in any version of the game, but it seems that these AP slot machines were originally going to play some role in the game, and that one of them was going to be at the Lumberjack's town. Catch the dangerous electric eel. This is a very interesting one. Before we explain it in detail, let's recap the Used I Need a Bomb event of the final game. To blow up the rusty door in the Iron Castle, you need a bomb. To get the bomb, you need to talk to the guy in the Lumberjack's factory. He will tell you that he made a bomb a long time ago, but because it was so dangerous, he hid it in the tallest tree in the jungle. And sure enough, you find a bomb there. A bomb that suspiciously looks like a coconut. For the player, this reasoning hardly makes any sense. It's likely that this was a very rushed fix to keep the game's event flow somewhat working after the removal of the Village of Civilization. But what's the deal with the eel then? Why would you catch a dangerous electric eel? Well, let's look at the next event description. Something with dangerous powers. This one is an outlier, because not only is it an unused event description, it also has an event name attached to it. The name of the event is Wonders of the Black Water, and there in fact exists an item called Black Water. As an extension to this, these unused items and sprites can be found in the game's data. Electric eel. Description says, shocking, source of electricity. Coconuts. Description says, empty the coconut and fill it with something else for an exciting event. Rubber gloves. Description translates to gloves which are fine even for holding dangerous things. Finally, there's this unused animation of Tomba, quite literally being shocked. But how does this all come together? Well, there's some unused text in the Japanese version's Area 17 files that translates as follows. How to make a bomb? Oh, come on. You're serious? You're an honest guy. Well, yeah, I guess. No one's ever done that before. Let's give it a shot. You'll need to go get some stuff. To make a bomb, first of all, a little electricity is needed. An electric eel from the jungle should be enough. And some black water. Those are the ingredients needed. Bring them here and let's make a bomb. What? Do you want to catch an electric eel with bare hands? Don't be so hasty. Take this. Looks like that's both of them. Well, let's take a look at the ingredients. Yay! This should be enough for doing the explosive. Yes, although, while I'm making this, think you could fetch me a coconut. I think I've seen some atop the palm tree in the jungle. Fill a coconut shell with this stuff and you're good to go. Fill a coconut with this stuff and... okay, you're done. What? You still want more bombs? I'll make as many as I can. I just need the coconuts. So, what gathered from all this? Obviously, this was a much more intricate fetch quest that ended up being scrapped in favor of a hastily thought out simpler event, where you got the bomb from a palm tree to break down the rusty door. It appears that you originally were supposed to fabricate the bomb yourself by first receiving the rubber gloves from someone in the Iron Town, then getting black water from the dried wishing well, and then an electric eel from the jungle, and bringing them all to someone in Iron Town, who would then ask you to get an ordinary coconut from a palm tree in the Masakari jungle. Once the bomb was done, you could have blown up the boulder in the Lumberjack's factory and gotten your green pig bag. There is a large boulder there. It's such a nuisance. In the final game, the only remnant of this flow of events is that the bomb looks like a coconut and is hidden in the tallest palm tree. Now, just hold on a second. Lumberjack's factory boulder, green pig bag, dried wishing well, eel in the jungle. Yeah, let's go through this stuff real quick. There is a huge boulder blocking the entrance into Lumberjack's factory in all versions of the game. You just never see it, because there's a hole graphic loaded on top of the boulder immediately as you enter the area. We suspect this boulder was originally going to be blown up by the bomb. In the final game, you enter an area called the Dried Wishing Well through this hole. We suspect that the original idea was that entering the hole simply gave you the green pig bag in a walk-in, walk-out manner, much like the red pig bag in Phoenix Mountain, and didn't explicitly send you to any area. This theory is backed up by the hypothesis about how the lava caves played out originally. You weren't supposed to get the green pig bag from the lava caves because the lava caves were never under an evil pig spell in the first place. The real evil pig spell was the spell he cast upon the 3 villages. The green pig bag can also be found in the VRAM of the Lumberjack's factory, so that seals the deal. So, if the original plan was that the Lumberjack hole only gave you the pig bag, where was the real Dried Wishing Well then? The only lead we really have is this well in Stonestown. Besides the one in the Dwarf Village, this is the only well in the game. Besides, the Dried Wishing Well area looks like... well... Even the map screen seems to be confused about it, as viewing the map there will show Tomba in Stonestown and the finger in Lumberjack Town. There's still one caveat, but we'll get back to this later. The eel very likely resided in the Massacre River. Not only can its graphics be found in the VRAM of the Massacre River area, unused dialogue from 16.219 translates to, well, when I long ago decided to enter the river, suddenly I was struck by a shock. What could it have been? Back to the event descriptions. Find the stolen evil pig bag. Well, we've really got nothing here, but the event description is unused, so maybe there was some plot about the green pig bag being stolen at one point and maybe being hidden behind the boulder. Unfortunately, this event description and its position between the events clearly related to the Village of Civilization is all we've got, really. Listen to the Green Fortune Teller's story. The final game has no green fortune teller, but there is a house with a crystal ball in the unused Lumberjack town. There's also this unused event icon and an appropriate green clut for the fortune teller's graphics. Additionally, the fortune teller has many unused sprites. He barely moves in the final game, but these sprites can be found in his graphics page. It's likely he acted much like the other fortune tellers, but lived in the Lumberjack town. He's also got some unused dialogue. I am a fortune teller who read your future. I only speak to those with 300,000 AP points or more. Well, it looks like you have enough AP points. Let's have a look. Blue is the beachside door, green is the mansion on the lake, yellow is the god of time. Do you understand? There is also some dialogue where an NPC says, in this hut there's a fortune teller. It seems there are some prerequisites though. He won't tell me anything. Can't we all just get along? Again, there's really nothing we've got here except the fact the description says can't we all just get along, hinting at some bickering between some parties. Judging from its position in the event list, this was probably initiated at some point when you learned about the grudges between the 3 villages, and cleared once either the curse was lifted or once you had cleared all the events related to the Stone Ironwood debacle. Again, pure speculation, but it's very likely related to the Village of Civilization. Additionally, the Irontown area contains this unused text. I guess anything is possible with a little teamwork. Why were we fighting? I think it's because of that wall. We used to be good friends a long time ago. A broken bridge blocks the way. There are hardly any bridges, let alone broken ones in the final game. However, in the purified Village of Civilization graphics, there are these bridge graphics. This is just a generic bridge, and these two are obviously the same bridge, just broken and fixed versions. So, that's pretty much all we know. The event description is a broken bridge blocks the way, so it makes sense to assume that you couldn't continue past some point until the bridge was fixed. Judging from these unused sprites of the Lumberjack guys, they might have been the ones to fix the bridge in the end. The clock that stopped. In the final game, the clock tower is broken because there's no power. Once you break the rusty door and access the engine room, you turn on the engine and the clock tower starts working again. This series of events is actually an afterthought, and the original scene panned out in a much different manner. Let's first take a look at this unused render of the old clock tower. The area surrounding the clock tower looks completely different to that of the final game. There are stone pillars surrounding the tower, and the tower itself appears to be standing on a large, flat grass field. The tower's exterior is different too, as most of it looks to be made completely out of stone. The roof is stone. The hands on the dial are stone. Come to think of it, the clock tower's engine room, even in the final game, is very stone-like too. The gears are made of stone. As it turns out, the clock tower was originally an area in Stonestown. You can still see proof of this in the map screens of both the Japanese and the US versions. There's also unused dialogue in which the Stonestown guys lament how the clock is broken, and even in the final game you can still see the broken cog fragments on the floor of the engine room. Cogwheels make the clock tick. This seems a bit superfluous because we've already established that the clock tower is broken, and the reason is not that there's lack of power, but that one of the stone gears is broken. You can see remnants of this even in the final game, but yeah, the description says it all really. Cogwheels make the clock tick. The more interesting part is the way you get the issue resolved, but that is probably done in the next event, which has the description of what's stronger than stone? This event description combined with all the unused text, items and functionality wraps it all up. You see, there's an unused item called the Iron Wheel in the game's data. It's got an item icon and a sprite too. The small icon looks like a cogwheel, and if you check out the VRAM of the clock tower's engine room, you can find a lonely graphic of a similar looking object. If you hack the item into your inventory and use it in the engine room, you actually get a "used the iron wheel" message, but much like the Renaissance, it doesn't actually do anything. Although the functionality has been dummied out, you can actually still see the cog in its attached state by hacking yourself into the room after the "We Need Power" event is cleared in the final game. Normally, the miner prevents you from ever re-entering the engine room because it's apparently too dangerous. But if you force your way in, you can actually see that the cog has been put into its place. By the way, the cog is the one you saw in the VRAM earlier, and actually looks precisely like the one you see in the final FMV. Bet you never paid attention to that. But where would you get the iron wheel from then? Judging by the unused iron item, that still has a Japanese item description which translates to an iron lump that can be made into a strong tool, and this unused dialogue, it's clear that someone was going to make it for you. The stone cogwheels are broken. A gear? If you make it out of wood, it will break in a second. What do you want? I'm a good iron worker, even though I look like this. If you want me to make something out of iron, just ask. What? Can I make an iron gear? Don't make me laugh. With my skills, it'll be ready in the blink of an eye. Though I'd love to, but unfortunately I'm running out of materials. Just bring me some ingredients and I'll make the gear for you. The virtues of teamwork start to come apparent now that it seems you had to get some iron from wherever, have it fabricated into a cogwheel in the Iron Town, and then take it to Stonestown to fix its clock tower. We don't have hard proof about any details, especially regarding where you would have gotten the iron from, and who was the one to actually fabricate the gear. But the fact that an iron wheel ends up in Stonestown is something to think about. The door with the keyhole that will not open. This one's another head scratcher, but we know it's gotta have something to do with the Village of Civilization. First, there's this unused event icon that depicts a key and a lock. Then, we have this unused item called Unusual Key with the description of a key. Where's the lock? If you take a look at the key item itself, you might notice it has a distinct trilobular shape in its bow. Another place where you can see an identical key is in the gate of the Iron Town, on this pedestal, and on the walls of the Iron Castle, even on the exterior of the Iron Castle. The key absolutely held some significance in the Iron Town. Unfortunately, we haven't found any text that would elaborate on this, and the only locks in the game that could be related are these three. The one in the Lumberjack town, in the slot machine house's exterior, if you can really call that a lock. One in the Stonestown houses, and one in the purified Village of Civilization's main street. Three towns come together when the spell is broken. This is obviously the description of the event that ties the three individual towns together once the spell is broken. It was likely cleared immediately after the cutscene played. All in all, this just reaffirms the theory that there originally were separate Lumberjack, Stone and Iron towns which merge into one Village of Civilization once the Green Pig is defeated. Feels almost identical to the event that had the description of "Can't we all just get along?" but who knows. So, that's all of the unused event descriptions. Sure, there's a whole lot of more text, even more so in the Japanese version, not to mention the early demos we haven't dived deeper into, but that should at least give some sense of the scope of the mystery. Now, let's generally go through some of the interesting stuff. Some of it is definitely related to the Village of Civilization, but some might not be. Still, we thought it warrants its own chapter here now that we've established a general outline. 1. The coordinates. In the info2.bin file, there's this data. Having dealt with similar looking arrays before, we knew it was NPC coordinate data, and after plotting the points out, we realized it doesn't match any pre-existing town's character coordinate map. Only after we laid the points out on top of the stitched map we made from the unused FMV did we notice that the coordinates match perfectly with the NPC positions. Interestingly, there's also these few out-of-scope characters. They likely match to these NPC IDs. 2. Coal and the Civilization Machine. A lot of coal-related things are in the game. Not only is there an explicit coal item with both an item icon and an item sprite, I guess, but also this text in 11.2.1.1. There's a lot of coal here. I wonder what it's for. Also, you can find these strings in the Japanese version. Well, if only we had coal. Coal or... wait. Speaking of which, it was in a wooden town somewhere. The Civilization Machine also appears to use coal as its power source. There's 2 sprites for the coal pile in the machine, both of which can be seen in the final retail game as well. You were supposed to get coal from somewhere, Lumberjack Town maybe, and use it for something. As it stands, the only place in the final game where you can even see any coal is the Civilization Machine. Also, the event, the Civilization Machine, is never initiated in the final game, only cleared. So make of that what you will. 3. The original raft plan and the Lumberjack Dwarf. In the final game, the iron workers give you the raft once you get the Civilization Machine working. It seems that originally you were going to make the raft yourself by gathering the materials and bringing them to the Lumberjack. First, this unused dialogue can be found in the Iron Town. Did you know if you swim against the current of the Masakari River, you'll reach a waterfall? Yeah, I know that. The one where the logs fall off, right? What? You want a raft? Okay. I'll be at the factory and do some prep work. You go and pick up some wood. Clang clang, squeak squeak. Got it. Take it to the riverside on the old tree hill. Use the raft there. The raft craftsman from that hut. Is he doing well? Then there's this unused item simply called wood, with the description that translates to perfect wood for making a raft. Its item icon is a tree stump, and its sprite is a log. We can't confirm this is related, but the only character in the game who actually axes down a tree is this dwarf. He only exists in the Japanese Pre-Pre 9 demo of the game, and you can't even interact with him. Still, even in the final game, the tree he was cutting down is gone once the curse of the dwarf village is lifted. There's an unused event found in an early demo titled Dwarf's Help, which has an event icon of an axe. This might be a stretch, but maybe originally the dwarf axed down the tree and the logs ended up into the waterfall where they fell down to the Masakari River, where you were supposed to pick them up and bring them to the Lumberjack. Can't say for sure. 4. The Lumberjack's contradiction. Earlier in the video I said there's still one caveat, but we'll get back to this later. Well, this is that caveat. There's this unused dialogue found in the Lumberjack's factory. You see that large broken door over there? I went in there once. Guess what I saw? Water. Dark black water. Weird, huh? Yeah. If this is something the Lumberjack said, then the hypothesis about the Lumberjack hole being just a small crevice where the pig bag is hidden goes into the trash. We can't really explain this discrepancy, but it could be that this is intermediate leftover dialogue from that point of time in development when they had already decided that the village of civilization must be scrapped, but before they had actually tied all the loose ends event flow-wise. 5. The rusty iron car. Besides the wonders of the black water, there is another unused event with the name, description and event icon intact. The rusty steel car. And its description, how does an iron car move? For whatever reason, there are strings for both the rusty steel car and the rusty iron car in the event data, so it's still unclear if it's a translation error or something else. There are these unused minecarts in the underground maze, but even that's a stretch, really, so no real answer here either. But because the name contains iron, it might be related to the 3 towns. Then again, there are weapons called wood boomerang, stone boomerang and iron boomerang, but those have nothing to do with the 3 towns either, so who knows. 6. The lifts and the hand cranks. The Iron Town features these chains suspended in the air. We've got some proof that they were going to start moving lifts around once the cranks started turning. There's graphics for the lifts and chains, and cranks have animation frames, and there's unused text talking about them. This girl is standing next to a crank too, maybe she was going to use that one. There are a bunch of cranks in the interiors of the Iron Town houses seen here. There's also this track for a lift in the wall of a house in Stonestown. Additionally, we've got some unused dialogue that says, "This looks like an elevator that clings to the wall, but it doesn't operate." Long ago, the lift was operating by a machine, even without turning it by your hands. If you ride by the lift and go above the path that is just in the middle there's an iron castle. How is it? Was the gear operating? Is that so? I was told by Dr. Gantetsu to follow you. Whatever it may be, to operate the clock tower, it was no good to just fix the gear. To operate the machine, electricity is needed. Well, for a detailed story, ask Dr. Gantetsu. Gantetsu? You mean that narrow-minded Dr. Gantetsu? If you mean the doctor, he returned to his hut. Look, you can go from that lift. It's the hut just in the middle. You want to go up? If that's so, enter this hut. Looking for something? If it's that you want to make something out of steel, try going into this lift into the hut. There's several mentions of Dr. Gantetsu here, who we suspect is this guy. He appears next to an iron hut. Tetsu means iron in Japanese and fits the description of a narrow-minded doctor pretty well. 7. Gates to other towns. There is some text in the Japanese version that suggests someone is secretly opening doors to the other villages. Iron Town and Lumberjack Town gates. I secretly opened them. It's a secret. There's probably more to this, but yeah, can't say. 8. Maze under the floor in Lumberjack Town. More unused text. This one talks about the maze under the floor in Lumberjack Town and translates as follows. Under the floor here, there's a maze. Do not enter it carelessly. That hut. You must pass under the floor. I think it's inconvenient. You can go to the Lumberjack's factory from the entrance that is visible from above. If you've got the time, you should pay a visit sometime. This is further backed up by the fact that you can see an exit on top of the area that seems lower than the rest, just like the NPC to the right of the town. There's overlay graphics for this part too, suggesting that you were supposed to go behind or under this part. 9. Unused Lumberjack overlay. There exists an overlay graphic for the hut in the Lumberjack factory. Tomba and the NPC were supposed to be inside the hut, much like the Dwarf Elder's hut. Not particularly interesting, but still very cool. 10. The doors in the Iron Castle. There are a lot of unused graphics for doors in the Iron Castle. The doors to the room on the right and left have animations for opening, and there's also this graphic for the huge rusty door with a hole in it, likely left by a bomb. Why they were never used is a bizarre mystery. The side doors do animate in the Japanese version though. Before we wrap things up, let's check out the unused sprites and town graphics with some scrutiny one last time. In closing, we'd really like to say, and that wraps it up. But the fact is, there's still an obscene amount of unused dialogue and sprites and data we haven't talked about. Hell, even things we haven't discovered yet. Lots and lots of text still remains untranslated, especially from the early demos. We didn't even list all the individual dialogue data where NPCs expressed their distaste towards the people of the other towns. We didn't even talk about the civilization machine overheating and needing a fan to cool down. We didn't even talk about the whole Fanga subplot with the massacre language, additional quest given by the Tree of Knowledge, or the Chief Spear, or the Fanga drum, or the... yeah. Maybe that's another rabbit hole we'll dig in some other time. But for now, that's a pretty comprehensive overview of the whole Village of Civilization thing. No definitive closure, but that's the best we've got. Thanks to all the contributors and people who helped us along the way. For the latest Tomba news, please follow us on Twitter and join our Discord. Links are in the description.